Silent Ma, poor maid saved billionaire madam after hearing her husband's conversation. I'm ready to end it. After all, there's no child. When she's gone, everything is mine. The houses, the company, the accounts. No parents, no siblings, nobody will ask questions. Those words slid down the hallway like a knife. Judith froze beside the staircase, a tray of clean cups shaking in her hands. Her breath stopped. Her heart thumped. She could hear Mr. Bernard's voice through the half-closed study door, calm, cold, and mean. The marble floor was cool under her feet, yet her palms burned. One wrong step and he would know she heard. One wrong step and somebody might be affected. 3 days from now, a single whisper will choose who lives and who falls. But before that happens, 2 phones will ring, 1 heart will break, and 1 secret will turn a maid into the most powerful witness in the city. If you think you already know who the villain is, wait. Villains wear perfume. Heroes wear old shoes. Keep your eyes on the quiet one. Judith tucked herself against the wall, the tray pinned to her chest. She had cleaned this house for 2 years. She knew every echo, every door, every shadow. The city outside roared with late morning traffic and the loud hoots of impatient horns, but in here it was just air, silence, and a voice planning a mischief. Don't call again, Bernard said into the phone, still hidden in the study. We move tonight. She's going to her office. Her security will be light. I'll text you the route. When she's gone, the assets transfer. Understand? I'll handle the will. Judith's lungs finally found air. A thin gasp slipped out. She swallowed it, pretending to cough, small, quiet, like dust in the throat. The study door snapped shut. Bernard's steps approached. She lifted the tray and walked fast, head down, moving like any maid with any work. She turned the corner, almost colliding with Madame Melissa. Judith. Melissa whispered. Have you seen Bernard? I need to ask about the board call. Judith put the tray on a side table and did something she had never done before to her employer. She reached out and covered Melissa's mouth with her palm. Please, Judith breathed, eyes wide, voice thin as thread. Don't call him. Listen. Melissa stiffened, shocked. Her eyes searched Judith's face and found raw fear. Not gossip. Not small drama. Real danger. Judith slowly took her hand back and pulled Melissa toward the corner behind the pillar, away from the study door. They waited. Bernard walked past them, phone in his pocket, a neat smile on his lips. He smelled of citrus cologne and fresh money. He went straight to the living room mirror, fixed his tie, and checked his teeth. He looked like a man who had never been hungry and never planned to be. He did not see them. He picked up his car keys. He left. The house exhaled. Melissa pressed a hand to the pillar to steady herself. What did you hear? Judith's voice shook. He said he is ready to end it. That you have no child. That when you are gone, everything becomes his. He said no one will ask questions. Melissa's face emptied, as if someone wiped away all her color. She felt a cold hand squeeze her chest. A small sound came out of her mouth, a wounded sound, and she covered her lips with trembling fingers. 10 years married. 10 years hoping for a child. 10 years building safety around a man she chose. She felt foolish and suddenly very small inside her big house. How long? Melissa asked quietly. How long has this been going on? Judith blinked. The truth had lived like hot coal in her stomach for months. She had cooked for women who left perfume on the pillow. She had washed glasses with lipstick stains. She had opened the gate at night when Bernard returned laughing in the back seat of a dark car. It was never her place to speak. But today it was life and death. Madam, Judith said, I have records. Everything I could gather. Calls he made. Times he left. Photos of some women he brought when you traveled. Voice notes from the corridor. I kept them in case you ever needed proof. I was afraid. Melissa's eyes flashed, not at Judith, but at the history she had chosen to ignore. You kept them. Yes, madam. Dates. Times. His messages when he forgot to lock his screen. Even the day he went to the lawyer on the island. I don't know what he planned, but I saved it all. The billionaire madam drew in a long breath that tasted of fear and dust. She pressed her palm against her chest like a shield. Then she looked at Judith. Small shoes, plain dress, clear honest eyes, and she saw a lifeline. "Thank you," Melissa whispered. Tears ran down, quick and angry. "Thank you for being brave." Judith's voice softened. "Madam, today is not a normal day. Please, do not go out alone. Call your driver. Call security. Call your lawyer. And forgive me, madam, call the police." Melissa wiped her face with the back of her hand and nodded. Her mind shifted the way a machine shifts gears. Grief, then focus. She was an engineer before she was a wife. She built systems. She planned for failure. She understood risk management, asset protection, corporate governance, contingency planning. She had turned one bright idea in a small room into a tech company with steady revenue, clean cash flow, and multiple data centers across the region. She knew how to handle a crisis. She reached for her phone. "First my lawyer," she said. "Then the head of security. After that, the police." Judith nodded and reached for the tray again, like a screen coming down to hide the stage. But a thought stabbed her. "Madam, wait. If he planned it for today, maybe there is someone watching the gate. Maybe someone is nearby. We should make it look like nothing is wrong." Melissa's eyes sharpened. "Good. We pretend. I go to work. You pack a bag for me and quietly send it to my office car. We leave in different cars. Security follows. And you. Me. You do not come with me. You go home for now. To your mother in the village. No, don't argue. If Bernard suspects you know, he might hurt you too." Judith thought of her mother's mud-walled kitchen, the smell of smoke and roasted corn, the old wooden bench under the mango tree. She thought of the narrow road where goats crossed like kings. The village was 2 hours away by bus, but safety was a long way if a rich man wanted you gone. Still, she understood. "I will go, madam," she said. "Let me gather my things." "Leave the records with me," Melissa said. "Or better, make copies. Send them to my lawyer and keep one for yourself." Judith's lips trembled. "I already sent copies to a safe email last month. Just in case." For the first time since the whisper, Melissa almost smiled. "You are not only kind, Judith. You are smart." By noon, the house slipped into a strange act. Melissa walked down the steps in a navy dress and small heels, as if it were any other day. 2 security men stood near the door, eyes hard. The driver, Keen, opened the car. Judith carried Melissa's laptop bag. Bernard's cologne still hung in the living room like a bad prayer. "Madam," Keen said, "there's a black car parked 2 houses down. It's been there an hour." Melissa did not look. "We will take the long route," she said. "Stay with the convoy. No stops. Tell the second car to watch our rear." "Done," Keen said, already on the radio. Judith handed Melissa the laptop bag and stepped back. "Your documents are in the inner pocket, madam. I added the folder with the recordings." And she pushed a small rosary into the bag's side pocket. "My mother says this helps." Melissa took the bag and touched Judith's hand. The touch said more than thank you. It said, "I see you. I value you. I will not forget this." The convoy moved out. The gate rolled shut. Silence fell again. Judith walked to the staff quarters to pick her small suitcase. It had 2 dresses, an old sweater, and a pair of flat shoes. She had no jewelry. Only a thin stack of notes in a small purse, the wage she saved bit by bit, dream by dream. She looked once around the room where she had slept for 2 years. She whispered a prayer that sounded like a promise. Let truth win. She stepped out to the backyard where the mango tree threw cool shade over the cement. In that shade, her mind drifted back to where her story started. Before the mansion and its glass walls, there was red earth. A village road made of dust and stubborn stones. A stream that sang in the morning and a market that laughed at noon. Judith came from a place where money had a face. The seed you planted, the goat you raised, the jug of palm oil you carried on your head under the sun. When people counted profit, they pointed at yam barns and bags of rice. When they spoke of investments, they meant pigs and cassava. She remembered waking at dawn to help her mother fry akra by the roadside, the smoke curling into the blue. Men stopped on cheap motorbikes to buy 3 balls for breakfast. Cash flow was the simple sound of coins in a small tin. Her mother always said, "Keep records, my child. Even of the little things. That is how money respects you." When Judith moved to the city, she carried that wisdom in a small notebook. Each wage, each bus fare, each coin saved went into the book. She never thought she would also keep another kind of record, ugly ones, dangerous ones, but life in the big city taught new lessons. Power can be sweet. Power can be cruel. And sometimes, the person sleeping in the biggest room is not the safest person in the house. Back in the mansion, a phone buzzed in Melissa's bag. She sat in the back of the car, straight spine, steady eyes. The convoy flowed through traffic. "Hello," she said. "Mrs. Melissa," a low voice replied. "This is Inspector Toba. Your lawyer called. Are you safe?" "I am," she said. "For now." "Good. I need you to come straight to our office. No detours. We will arrange an escort. Also, please do not confront your husband before we meet." Melissa swallowed a rough laugh. "Confront him? Inspector, I've been confronting him for years without seeing it. Not anymore." "Understood," Toba said. "We will set a protective order. We will also lock down your company's accounts so no unauthorized transfers can happen. Your lawyer mentioned your husband has no role in the company." "He is not on the board," Melissa said, voice tight. "He is not a signatory to any corporate accounts. He spends, but he does not build." "Good," Toba said. "That will help." The call ended. The car hummed. Melissa looked out at the city, busy, noisy, never resting. Tall billboards flashed telecom logos, fintech ads, insurance plans, and offers of quick loans. She remembered when she was 22 and soldered her first circuit board at a rented desk in a hot room behind a restaurant. Back then, the smell of pepper soup mixed with the smell of melting metal. She wrote code at night. In the day, she pitched to small businesses, promising data security and simple tools that could save them time and increase revenue. She had grown step by step, seed funding, then series funding, then evaluation that shocked old men who once laughed at her. She bought offices. She bought servers. She hired bright minds. She set up compliance that would make regulators smile. She gave scholarships to girls who wanted to fix the world. And in the middle of her building, she married Bernard. She had loved his smile once. She had believed the soft stories he told about starting a consulting firm, about plans to diversify assets, about equity in a friend's company. It always sounded like something about to happen. It never did. What happened instead were credit card bills from late-night clubs and trips labeled business, but filled with sunburnt photos and strange women. Her eyes stung. Not from the past. From the relief that someone had finally pulled her back from a cliff she didn't know she was walking toward. She sent a message to Judith. "We will be okay. Go safely. Send location when you get home." A reply came 1 minute later. "Yes, madam. I am on the bus. I will text when I reach." Melissa stared at the message and saw an invisible bond, a thin golden thread running from this car, through the city, across the fields, to a village road where a bus would cough into a small station full of hawkers and dust. Somewhere along that thread, Truth had chosen a simple girl to carry it. She tucked the phone away and whispered to herself, "No more fear." Judith's bus rolled out of the city. Glass towers fell behind them. The road stretched like a black ribbon across green land. She looked out of the window and watched farms slide by, maize, cassava, plantain leaves shining wet after a quick rain. Her shoulder relaxed for the first time since morning. She counted the poles by the roadside like rosary beads. Her phone buzzed. A number she didn't know. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello." Silence. Then a voice, smooth and soft. Bernard's voice. "Judith, where are you?" Her fingers tightened on the phone. "Sir." "I asked where you are," he repeated. "I need you to bring me the blue file from the study. The one marked estate plan." Judith's throat went dry. He never called her directly. I'm at the market, sir. Buying tomatoes." A pause. Then a friendly laugh. "Good girl. Always working. When you return, tell me. I will be at home." He hung up. Judith sat very still, the road blurring past. She could feel his net searching the house. The estate plan file. If he found it empty, would he run? If he thought she knew, would he chase? She typed quickly to Melissa. He called me. He asked for the estate plan file. Melissa replied in seconds. Do not answer again. Stay off the main road when you arrive. I have informed Inspector Toba. Judith closed her eyes and let the bus carry her forward. The village air would smell like smoke and rain. Her mother would make Gary and groundnut. The old bench would still be under the mango tree. But nothing was the same anymore. Today had cut a line across her life, before and after. She looked at her reflection in the dusty window. A simple girl with big eyes and quick hands. But in her ear, the whisper of the morning still ran like a river. I'm ready to end it. She opened her notebook and wrote one line under today's date. Truth is expensive, but it pays the highest interest. Then she added another, villains hate records. Outside, the sun slid toward the west. The road curved left, then right. Somewhere behind them, a man smiled into a mirror and thought he held the world. Somewhere ahead, a woman prepared to turn pain into power. The bus rattled on. And the city waited for the night. By 1:10 p.m., Melissa walked into the police headquarters with her head high and her heart burning. The building was old, faded paint, a thin smell of sweat and paper, but the men inside stood straight, and their eyes were serious. Inspector Toba met her at the entrance with two officers. Ma'am, he said, nodding. Your lawyer is waiting. They led her into a small room, no fancy chairs, only a metal table and a humming ceiling fan that clicked every time it turned. On the table sat a flask of water, 2 paper files, and one small recorder with a red light. The lawyer, Mrs. Adesawa, rose. She was a calm woman with short hair and eyes that missed nothing. Melissa, she said softly, we'll be okay. Let's do this right. Melissa didn't waste words. She placed Judith's folder on the table, slid out a flash drive, and said, these are recordings. Timestamps. Photos. Screenshots of messages. Notes from the house staff. There is also one bank notice I received last month about an attempted account access from a strange device. I ignored it then. That was a mistake. Inspector Toba clicked on the recorder. Please, walk us through it. Step by step. Melissa breathed in. She was an engineer before she was anything else. She did not break under pressure. She drew a clean line through it. 2 years ago, she began, my company crossed a new revenue milestone. We won a government data security contract. We opened a second data center. At the same time, I noticed Bernard's trips increased. I asked him questions. He said, business development. He had no registered business. My CFO warned me there was a pattern of cash withdrawals from one of our family accounts, small, then larger. I confronted Bernard. He said it was for equity in a friend's startup. No paperwork. I let it go. I was tired of fighting. Her voice steadied as memory turned into decision. 3 months ago, I hired a quiet risk consultant named Ao to cross-check all our asset registers and my personal estate plan. He found nothing missing on the corporate side. Our internal controls are strong, but my personal safety? Weak. I didn't act fast. That is on me. She tapped the flash drive. Judith acted faster. She kept records I did not have the courage to keep. They listened to the first voice note, the same whisper that had cut the morning open. The room went very still. Even the fan seemed to listen. I'm ready to end it. No child, everything is mine. Inspector Toba's jaw tightened. He stopped the playback and wrote a note. That line about no parents, no siblings matters, he said. He believes no one will fight for you. He underestimates the law. Mrs. Adesawa leaned forward. Melissa, I want to immediately file for a protective order and freeze any joint accounts. Also, we move your will and estate file to a legal escrow. Your personal security detail answers to me and Inspector Toba for the next 72 hours. Do it, Melissa said. And one more thing. She looked at Toba. Please don't arrest Bernard yet. Not today. Toba frowned. Why? Because he's not alone, Melissa said. Someone is helping him. The person on that call is not a random street man. The way he spoke, we move tonight. That is coordination. If we arrest Bernard now, the partner will disappear. I want them both. The inspector studied her. She was not shaking anymore. She was planning. We can set a controlled environment, Toba said. We will watch him. We will follow the money, the coals, the cars. But you must not go home alone. You must not go anywhere without police. I understand, Melissa replied. Good. Our cyber unit will also pull logs from your phone company. We will map his calls and his location pings. If he paid anyone through mobile transfer or POS, we'll see it. Crime leaves a footprint in cash flow. A thin smile touched Melissa's mouth. That's exactly what I teach my team. Thank you. Far away from the city noise, Judith's bus rolled into the village station at 2:03 p.m. The driver honked twice and parked by a wooden bench where an old woman sold mangoes. Dust rose and settled like old stories. Chickens chased each other under the wheels. The air smelled of smoke from cooking fires and rain-soaked earth. Judith climbed down with her small suitcase. Her mother, Mama Ebel, stood there already, short, strong, with a wrapper tied tight and a head tie slanted to one side. As soon as she saw her daughter, her face broke into worry and then into love. Judith, my child. What happened? Your call sounded like rain. Judith hugged her and felt years of safety in one embrace. Mama, I will tell you inside. They walked fast down the narrow path between houses, past the old well, past a group of boys fixing a bicycle with a spanner and a lot of advice. A goat bleated. Someone's radio played a high-life tune. The village moved at its usual rhythm, slow, patient, unbothered by the hurry of cities. Inside the small house, Judith locked the door and pulled the curtains. She told her mother everything in simple words. She did not hide the fear. She did not hide the part where she covered her madam's mouth to save her. As she spoke, her mother's eyes grew wet but fierce. You did right, Mama Ebel said. God sees you. Truth sees you. Sit. Drink water. Then we think. Judith drank. Her hands still trembled. Mama, I don't want to bring trouble here. This house knows trouble, her mother said with a tired smile. It has eaten with us before and still found the door. We will be careful. She took Judith's phone, removed the SIM, and slipped it into a small plastic bag. For now, use my old phone. Different number. Don't pick unknown calls. Judith nodded. Bernard called me on the bus. He asked for a file. The kind of man who asks for a file also sends a man for a person, Mama Ebel said. We will not walk alone. She opened the back door and called to the boy in the next compound. Chisholm. A tall, quiet teenager appeared, wiping his hands on a rag. He had been fixing the bicycle. Mama Ebel? Please go and tell the catechist we may sleep in the church office tonight, she said calmly. And tell your mother to come. No noise. No fear. Judith is home, and we will not be foolish. Chisholm nodded and ran. Church? Judith asked. Her mother's eyes softened. The church has strong doors and many eyes. If a strange car parks at night, too many people will see it. That is better than our small house. Judith sighed with relief. Thank you, Mama. Back in the city, Bernard sat in a hotel lounge, his legs crossed, his smile thin. He wore a cream linen shirt, dark sunglasses, and a wristwatch that liked to show off. Across from him sat a woman in a red dress, Tina, with hair like a magazine picture and a phone that never left her hand. You look stressed, Bernie, Tina teased, stirring her drink. Trouble at home? Bernard's jaw ticked. Nothing I can't handle. She leaned back. You said tonight. Are you sure? He glanced around the lounge. Two men in suits argued softly over a deal. A waiter carried a tray of peppered gizzard to a table in the corner. The TV on the wall showed a debate about foreign investment and exchange rates. The world looked normal, but his chest felt tight. Change of plan, he said. We wait till tomorrow. I need a paper. Then we move. Tina smiled, lazy and slow. Always planning, never doing. Bernard grinned without joy. You will thank me when the assets are clean and the transfer is silent. I told you, once she's gone, the houses and the company shares are mine. Tina raised a brow. Company shares? I thought you said she never put your name on any board document. He waved a hand. There are other ways. Probate is a game. I have a power of attorney draft. Once she is gone and no family shows up, I can push it. I have a cousin in the registry. Tina's eyes flickered. Risky. Reward is bigger, he said. You like nice things, don't you? Tina laughed and looked at her phone. I do like nice things. I also like to know when a man is lying to himself. He leaned forward. You calling me a liar? She gave him a smile that did not touch her eyes. I'm calling you a dreamer. But go on. What's next? Bernard lowered his voice. We locate the maid. She heard too much. Tina's finger stopped moving on the phone screen. The maid. She's a small girl who thinks she's smart, he said. We silence her. After tonight, no witnesses. Tina sipped her drink and sent a short message under the table. Target plans to find Maid. Move her now. Bernard didn't see it. He also didn't know who Tina really was. 3 months earlier, when Melissa's CFO flagged the strange family account withdrawals, AO, the quiet risk consultant, had placed 2 eyes on Bernard's world. One eye was digital, a watch on his POS trails, hotel check-ins and phone calls. The second eye was human, Tina, a friend of AO's who smiled easily and asked simple questions. Bernard believed he had found a new perfume. He had actually met a mirror. At 3:20 p.m., Melissa, her lawyer, and Inspector Toba moved to a larger room. A wall-sized whiteboard waited with markers. On it, the inspector drew a simple map: Melissa's house, Bernard's last known locations, 2 hotels, 3 phone numbers, 1 black car. We will not scare him yet, Toba said. We will build a box and close it. He pointed at the map. 2 units on the house. 1 tail on Bernard. Cyber unit on Coles. Legal team on asset freeze and protective order. And this is important, we move Judith to an undisclosed place. Already in progress, Melissa said, showing Tina's message on her screen, the one Tina had forwarded a minute ago to AO, then to Melissa. Target plans to find Maid. Move her now. Toba looked up sharply. Who is this sender? AO's field contact, Melissa said. I'll explain the full story later. For now, it means Bernard has noticed Judith. Toba's voice hardened. We get her out tonight. Melissa shook her head. We get her out now. The sun fell toward evening in the village, turning the dust gold. Judith and her mother walked quietly to the small church at the edge of the road. Chisholm carried the suitcase. The catechist, a gentle man with careful words, opened the office and checked the windows. He brought a mat and a lantern. He prayed without making it heavy. God, hide them like a seed in good soil. Let every eye that means harm go blind. Judith lay on the mat and closed her eyes. Every sound felt like a footstep. Every shadow felt like a question. Her mother sat beside her, whispering a psalm that sounded like home. The phone buzzed. A new number again. Judith swallowed. Mama. Her mother nodded. Pick. Put it on speaker. Hello. Judith said. A woman's voice, quick and low. Judith, my name is Tina. I work with people who are helping Madam Melissa. Don't ask questions now. 2 police vehicles are coming to the village. 10 minutes. Stay inside the church office. Do not open the door for anyone except a man who says the phrase, truth keeps receipts. Repeat it. Judith whispered, truth keeps receipts. Good, Tina said. Keep your line open. If anyone knocks and does not say that line, do not answer. The call ended. Judith's chest beat fast. Mama, I don't know this woman. Fear and wisdom can sit in the same room, Mama Ebel said. We wait. We test the line. Footsteps. Voices outside. Judith's breath stuck. A knock. 3 times. Who is it? Mama called, steady. Silence, then, this is the police. Come out. What is the phrase? Mama asked. Silence again. Then a small laugh. Open. Don't waste time. Judith and her mother looked at each other. Another knock. Harder. Chisholm's hand curled into a fist around the lantern handle. Mama Ebel stood. We will not open for liars, she said, voice strong. If you are police, go and bring the catechist. Silence. Footsteps moving away. Judith's phone buzzed again. Tina, do not open. Those are not our men. The real convoy is at the village square. Judith's mouth went dry. They know we are here. Yes, Tina said. But we are closer. Outside, a motorbike coughed to life. Then another. The sound circled like hungry dogs. The catechist slipped in through the back door. Two strange men are asking questions at the kiosk, he whispered. They said a girl came by bus. He froze as two shadows darkened the frosted glass of the office window. A hand tried the handle. It held. Judith. A voice called sweetly, wrong in its sweetness. Your mother sent us. Mama Ebel's eyes burned. My voice is here. My feet are here. You are liars. Leave. The handle shook. Then the shadow moved away. The catechist pulled a thin metal bar across the door. This will slow them, but not stop them if they bring tools, he said. Judith's phone rang again. This time, Inspector Toba's voice. Judith, this is Toba. We are 1 minute away. Do not open for anyone until I say the phrase. Footsteps. Running. A shout. A crash. Someone kicked the outer door. Wood cried out. Judith grabbed her mother's hand. Mama. I'm here, her mother said. Another kick. The hinge screamed. Judith's phone buzzed with a message from Melissa. Hold on. We are with you. Another kick. Then a horn. A siren. Tires on gravel. Men shouting with authority. Police. Hands up. The outside noise turned into a storm. Boots, orders, the slam of car doors, the sound of a man trying to run and meeting a wall of uniforms. 3 knocks. Calm, even. Who is it? Mama asked again, her voice still iron. A breath, then the words like a key. Truth keeps receipts. Mama exhaled. Now we open. The catechist slid the bar. Inspector Toba stepped in, 2 officers behind him. His eyes ran over the small room, the mat, the lantern, the fear that smelled like sweat. He nodded to Judith. You did well, he said. Judith's legs gave way and she sat hard on the mat. She began to cry without sound. Her mother held her, her own shoulders shaking, not from weakness but from relief. 2 men with a motorbike are in custody, an officer reported. Fake IDs. 1 phone with 3 new SIMs. Toba's jaw worked. They'll talk. He turned to Judith. You're coming with us now. Judith wiped her face. Where? To a place where paper is strong and doors are iron, Toba said. City safe house. Tonight, you sleep. Tomorrow you speak. And by tomorrow night, we will put handcuffs on the man who thought you were invisible. Judith stood. Let me get the suitcase. Chisholm handed it to her, eyes bright with pride. Sister Judith, we will watch your mother's house, he said. Nobody will touch it. Mama Ebel nodded. Go, my child. Carry your truth. It will carry you. They stepped into the village twilight. The sirens were quiet now. The 2 fake policemen sat on the ground, hands tied, faces hard and stupid. The Real police stood like trees around them. As the convoy pulled away, Judith looked back once. The mango tree, the church door, the red earth. Then the village shrank behind the dust. In the city, Bernard paced his living room like a cat that had tasted blood but feared rain. He called a number. No answer. He called another. No answer. He hurled his phone onto the couch and grabbed the estate plan file. He flipped pages, will drafts, insurance letters, property titles. His fingers stopped on a page with a gold seal. He smiled. Power of attorney, he whispered. Perfect. He didn't see the small blue dot blinking on the file's inner spine. Ao had placed it there 2 weeks ago when Bernard left the file open for 1 careless minute. The dot was a tracker no bigger than a grain of rice. Bernard looked at his mirror and straightened his shirt. Tomorrow, he told his reflection, you will be rich in the only way that matters, control. His reflection did not answer. But in another part of the city, Melissa's team stared at a digital map, one blued, pulsing softly, refusing to lie. And in the back seat of a police truck, Judith leaned her head on her mother's shoulder, just for one more minute, before the convoy turned into the highway. She whispered to herself, "Truth keeps receipts." Her phone buzzed with one last message from Tina, small twist. The voice Bernard called cousin at the registry? He is not a cousin. He is your madam's head of night security. Judith lifted her head. "Mama," she breathed, "the snake is inside the house." The road opened wide, and the night rolled in like a dark sea. By midnight, the city was restless. Cars pressed their horns like arguments, bars spilled laughter into the night air, and the tall towers of Lagos wore blinking lights like jewelry. But inside Melissa's mansion, silence weighed heavier than stone. The security gates were locked. Guards paced with radios. Yet in the shadows of that same house, Betrayal had already made a bed. Inspector Toba's warning still echoed in Judith's head as the convoy carried her toward the city safe house. The head of night security is his cousin. The thought chewed at her. Night after night, she had walked past that man at the gate, tall Joe, with his torchlight and his too smooth smile. She had brought him food once when he claimed to be hungry. She had pitied him when he limped from an old leg injury. She had even thought him loyal because he never gossiped like the others. Now the truth stabbed her ribs. He was the eyes and ears Bernard needed inside. Judith leaned closer to her mother in the convoy truck. "Mama, what if he is already watching Madame Melissa? What if he knows where the lawyer lives?" Mama Ebel squeezed her hand. "Child, snakes cannot stay hidden forever. The ground always shakes when truth comes near." But in her heart, even Mama Ebel feared. At the mansion, Bernard poured himself a glass of whiskey. He sat in Melissa's favorite chair, stretching his legs like a king. Tall Joe stood at the door, arms crossed. "Judith is gone," Joe reported. "Her room is empty. One small bag missing. Neighbors say she left in a hurry." Bernard's teeth ground together. "She knows. That stupid maid knows too much." Joe shrugged. "What do you want me to do?" Bernard's eyes glinted. "Find her. If she runs to the village, cut her off. If she runs to the police," he paused, sipping slow, "then we buy the police." Joe shifted uneasily. "Inspector Toba is not cheap." Bernard slammed the glass down. "Everything is cheap when you have her assets." He walked to the window, staring out at the city lights. "Tomorrow it ends. She'll go to her office in the morning. We'll stage an accident on the bridge. No wife, no witness. And the company, her sweet tech empire, becomes mine." Joe nodded, but in his eyes flickered a fear he didn't show. At the other end of the city, Judith finally stepped into the safe house. Iron doors. Bars on windows. Cameras that blinked red. It wasn't luxury, it was safety. Inspector Toba handed her a blanket. "You'll rest here tonight. Tomorrow, you give us a full statement. Every detail. Every recording. Understood?" Judith nodded. "Yes, sir." Melissa stood nearby, her face pale but strong. When their eyes met, she crossed the room and hugged Judith. It was the first time the billionaire madam embraced her maid like family. "You saved me," Melissa whispered. "You don't know how much." Judith's throat tightened. "I only told the truth, madam." "No," Melissa said firmly, pulling back. "You risked your life for me. That is more than truth. That is courage." Tears pressed against Judith's eyes, but she blinked them back. Later that night, alone in the small safe house kitchen, Melissa sat at the table staring at her phone. She scrolled through old photos, her wedding day, her first office, a ribbon cutting with smiling staff. Bernard was in many of them, his smile wide, his hand resting on her shoulder as if he owned her. Her chest ached. 10 years of marriage. 10 years of lies. 10 years of giving him access to her home, her trust, her love. But not her company. That, she had kept sealed. She closed her eyes. "I built my empire from nothing. I will not let greed destroy it." She opened her laptop and sent an urgent memo to her board of directors. Effective immediately, all company communications, contracts, and financial authorizations must require dual sign-off, myself and CFO. No exceptions. Heightened cybersecurity protocols. Any attempt at unauthorized withdrawal or proxy signature should be flagged and frozen. It was not just a wife fighting anymore. It was a CEO defending her throne. Meanwhile, at 2 a.m., Bernard drove through the city in his black SUV. He wasn't going home. He wasn't going to Tina. He was going somewhere darker. He parked in front of a small registry office tucked in a back street. Joe followed in another car. A man in a crumpled suit came out carrying a folder. "You're late," the man said nervously. Bernard snatched the folder. "Do you have the draft?" "Yes." "Power of attorney. If she passes suddenly, you'll file this as her last request. With no family to contest." Bernard grinned. "Perfect." But as he flipped through the papers, a small blue light blinked faintly at the folder's edge. Joe saw it first. "Boss, what is that?" Bernard frowned. And at that very moment, 2 unmarked police cars rolled silently into the street, lights off. Inside one of them, Inspector Toba whispered to his men, "Don't move yet. Let the snake slither. Then we strike." Back at the safe house, Judith lay awake on the narrow bed. Her mother snored softly beside her. But Judith's eyes stared at the ceiling. What if Bernard escaped? What if he found another way? What if all her proof wasn't enough? She sat up, opened her notebook, and wrote another line. "The rich man counts houses, but the wise man counts witnesses." Her hand trembled as she closed it. She didn't know yet that tomorrow would bring the first public crack in Bernard's mask. A crack that would split wide open before the world. Morning rose over the city like a restless fire. Cars roared to life, hawkers shouted breakfast sales, and in the towers of Victoria Island, workers hurried with briefcases and coffee cups. But inside Melissa's tech company headquarters, a 20-story glass building that reflected the sun like a blade, the air was not ordinary. Today, the board of directors gathered for an emergency meeting. The news had leaked. Bernard, the billionaire's husband, had tried to position himself as the company's proxy signatory. The boardroom was wide and bright, with a polished mahogany table stretching across the middle. Screens lit up with charts, revenue growth, cash flow statements, security compliance checks. Melissa walked in wearing a navy blue suit, her face calm, but her eyes sharp. Judith sat quietly outside the door, holding a file for her. This time, not as a maid, but as keeper of truth. "Good morning," Melissa said firmly, taking her seat at the head. "Before we begin, let me address the elephant in the room." A board member, an elderly man with glasses, cleared his throat. "Madam Melissa, we received a notice yesterday, an attempted proxy filing from your husband at the corporate registry. He claimed authority as your legal representative." Murmurs rippled across the room. Some eyes looked shocked, others curious. Melissa leaned forward. "He is not, and has never been, a board member. He holds no shares, no signatory rights, and no fiduciary duty. The attempt was fraudulent. And I have evidence that his intentions go beyond paperwork." The room stilled. She pressed a button, and the screen lit up with an audio recording. Bernard's voice filled the room. "I'm ready to end it. After all, we don't have a child. When she's gone, everything will be mine." Gasps erupted. A woman at the far end covered her mouth. One man shook his head violently, whispering, "God forbid." Melissa's voice cut clean through the noise. "That was recorded by my housemaid Judith, who risked her life to expose the truth. Bernard has been planning not just to steal this company, but to kill me. The police have opened an investigation. I will not hide this from you, because you deserve transparency." For a moment, silence hung like a heavy curtain. Then applause broke, not from everyone, but from enough. "Brave," one board member said. "Very brave." "Ma'am, we stand with you," another added. But in the corner, one man did not clap. The head of night security, Tall Joe, had been invited as part of the safety briefing. His eyes shifted nervously. He wasn't clapping. He wasn't even breathing right. Melissa saw it. She said nothing for now. Bernard in public. While Melissa defended herself inside the boardroom, Bernard stood outside the same building in a sharp gray suit. He had called 3 journalists, feeding them lies about corporate disputes. He smiled into the cameras. My wife is under stress. She's letting her employees poison her mind. I am her husband. I've been supporting her company for years with my connections abroad. These rumors of murder are ridiculous, gossip invented by jealous staff. A reporter raised a hand. But sir, there are recordings. Bernard raised his voice. Do not believe voice tricks. Technology can fake anything these days. My wife needs rest, not police harassment. He adjusted his tie, his smile wide and plastic. But sweat gleamed on his forehead. Because behind him, flashing blue lights pulled up. 2 police trucks. Inspector Toba stepped out. The reporters turned their cameras. Microphones lifted like weapons. Mr. Bernard, Toba said calmly, we have questions for you. Please come with us. Bernard laughed nervously. Questions? Fine. I'll answer. I'm innocent. But the crack had appeared. The public had seen it. The maid speaks. Inside the boardroom, Melissa called Judith in. Judith, she said, her voice firm but kind, tell the board what you told me. Judith swallowed, clutching the file. She looked at all the sharp suits, the eyes on her, and for a second she felt small again, the poor girl from the village who once fried accra with her mother by the roadside. But then she remembered the whisper in the corridor, I'm ready to end it. She lifted her chin. I cleaned this house for 2 years, she began. I saw the lipstick glasses. I heard the late-night calls. I watched him spend money that didn't belong to him. At first, I kept quiet. It wasn't my place. But when I heard him planning to kill Madame Melissa, I recorded it. I sent copies to safe places. If anything happens to me, the truth will still speak. The room listened, still and silent. One board member whispered, smart girl. Another murmured, fearless. Judith lowered her eyes, but Melissa reached across and touched her hand. No, lift your head. Today, you are not a maid. Today, you are my witness. Judith's chest swelled. For the first time, she felt taller than her size. The snake stirs. But tall Joe was sweating. He shifted in his chair, his eyes darting to the door. Melissa saw him again. This time, she spoke. Inspector Toba, before you leave, may I introduce you to my head of night security? Joe froze. He has been with us for years, Melissa continued. But lately, I suspect his loyalty is divided. Would you kindly check his phone records? Toba's eyes narrowed. Gladly. He stepped toward Joe. Joe stood quickly. I left my phone in the car. No, Toba said, his voice cold. Your phone is in your pocket. Hand it over. The boardroom air thickened. Joe's hand twitched near his pocket. And then he ran. Chaos erupts. The boardroom exploded. Chairs screeched back. Guards lunged. Joe dashed for the door, knocking down a water jug, sending glass flying. Stop him. Melissa shouted. But Joe was fast. Too fast. He shoved past 2 men and burst into the hallway, only to find Inspector Toba's officers already there. He fought like a cornered animal, throwing punches, kicking, screaming, you don't know who you're dealing with. It took 3 men to drag him down. His phone fell, skidding across the polished floor. The screen lit up with a message preview. Tonight. Bridge. Final move. Toba picked it up. His face hardened. He turned to Melissa. You were right. The snake was in the house. Melissa's hands trembled, but not from fear. From rage. And now, Inspector, we cut off its head. The public crack widens. Outside, Bernard watched as the camera swung from him to the struggling Joe being shoved into a police truck. His face drained of color. What is this? Bernard stammered. Toba stepped close. Your mask is falling, Mr. Bernard. And the world is watching. The reporters leaned in, hungry. Bernard tried to smile, but his lips shook. This is a mistake. A huge mistake. But deep inside he knew. The game had changed. The board had seen. The police had seen. The world had seen. And most of all, Judith, the poor maid, had spoken. Night fell heavy on the city. The lagoon reflected the lights of Lagos like broken glass, and the bridges stretched long and dark, carrying cars that moved like restless insects. Somewhere in the shadows of that vast water, a plan was waiting, cold, calculated, and murderous. Bernard sat in his SUV, parked 2 blocks from the third mainland bridge. The same file lay open on the seat beside him: power of attorney, estate drafts, insurance claims. His hand shook as he lit a cigarette, though he had never been a smoker. He dialed a number. "Is everything set?" A voice crackled on the other end. "Yes. The truck is ready. Once her car enters the bridge, we box her in. One push, and the lagoon swallows everything. No trace." Bernard closed his eyes and exhaled. "Perfect. By tomorrow, I'll be the only name on her life. The only one." But what he didn't know was that every word he spoke tonight ran through wires already tapped. At the police control room downtown, Inspector Toba stood with headphones clamped tight. His eyes burned as Bernard's voice filled the speakers. "Record it," Toba ordered. "Every second. This is the noose tightening itself." Melissa was there too, standing straight, her jaw set. Judith sat beside her, her hands clenched into fists. "That's the bridge we use every morning," Melissa whispered, voice trembling with rage. "That's where he planned to end me." Judith's eyes filled. "Madam, today he will fall into his own trap." Toba pointed to the map on the wall. "Team Alpha, take the bridge entrance. Team Bravo, flank from the exit. No mistakes. Tonight, we bury this scheme." The night was thick with suspense. Bernard's SUV rolled forward, headlights cutting through the dark. Behind him, a truck waited, its driver one of the hired men. Bernard's phone buzzed. It was Joe, calling from custody. He frowned. "Why are you?" But instead of Joe's voice, Inspector Toba's came sharp and cold. "We hear you, Bernard. Every word. Tonight, the bridge belongs to us, not you." Bernard's heart slammed against his ribs. "You how?" He hung up and gunned the engine. The truck behind him revved too, ready to follow. As Bernard's SUV climbed onto the bridge, blue lights burst alive at both ends. Sirens wailed. Cars blocked lanes. Officers stepped out with rifles raised. "Police! Step out of the vehicle!" The truck driver panicked, swerving hard. Tires screamed. The truck smashed into the railing, sparks flying. The driver leapt out and ran into the night, chased by officers. Bernard froze behind the wheel, sweat soaking his shirt. His plan was dead. His lies were caught. His mask was shattered. Melissa's voice came through the police radio, steady and strong. "Bernard, it's over. You will never touch me, or my company, or Judith again." Officers dragged Bernard out of the SUV. His face twisted with rage, his eyes wild. "You can't do this to me," he screamed. "I was her husband. Her husband. Without me, she's nothing." Melissa stepped forward from the convoy, flanked by police. She looked him in the eye, her face calm as iron. "No, Bernard. Without me, you're nothing. And without Judith, I would be gone. Remember that when you sit in your cell." The cameras flashed. The reporters who had followed earlier caught every second. Bernard's name would be headline news by morning, but not as a businessman. As a criminal. Back at the safe house, Judith sat with her mother, her hands trembling as the news came in. "Madam Melissa is safe," Toba told them with a tired smile. "And Bernard is in custody. You can rest now." Judith's mother hugged her tight, whispering, "My child, you carried truth like fire, and it lit the whole city." Judith wiped her tears. For the first time, she felt the weight lift from her shoulders. The poor maid had stood against the rich man's greed, and she had not been crushed. 2 days later, Melissa visited Judith at the safe house. She carried flowers, not roses, but sunflowers, tall and bright. "Judith," she said softly, "you were my shield when I was blind. You risked everything to save me. I will not forget." Judith lowered her eyes. "I only did what was right, madam." Melissa smiled. "Then let me also do what is right. You will not return to being a maid. I will sponsor your education, all the way to university. When you graduate, there will be a place waiting for you in my company, not as staff, but as a senior executive." Judith's lips parted in shock. Tears rolled freely down her face. She tried to kneel, but Melissa stopped her. "No," Melissa said firmly. "You are not my servant. You are my sister in courage." Judith sobbed into her hands. Her mother wept too, whispering prayers of thanks. That night, as Melissa looked out over the city skyline from her penthouse, she whispered to herself, "Greed can build a mask, but truth tears it apart." And in the village, under the mango tree, Judith opened her notebook and wrote, "Self-love is not selfish, it is survival. And survival is the seed of victory." The poor maid had become the voice that saved a billionaire. The husband who thought he owned the world lost it all. And the story spread across the city like fire. The prison gates clanged shut like a coffin lid. Inside, Bernard sat on a hard wooden bench, his once expensive suit torn at the collar, his hair rough, his lips cracked. The man who once strutted through airports, flashing passports and pouring champagne, now stared at bare walls that smelled of sweat and iron. A cracked mirror hung crooked on the wall. Bernard looked into it and barely recognized himself. The man staring back was not the charming husband of a billionaire. He was a criminal, a man caught by his own greed. His mind replayed Melissa's words at the bridge. "Without me, you're nothing." Those words cut deeper than the cold iron bars. Because they were true. For 10 years, he had lived on her wealth, worn her success like a jacket, and lied to himself that it was his charm that kept him there. But now, the jacket was stripped, and all that remained was naked failure. Bernard punched the mirror. The glass cracked more, blood dripping from his knuckles. He sank back against the bench, whispering, "She ruined me. She ruined me." But deep down he knew, he ruined himself. While Bernard's nights filled with regret, Melissa's mornings filled with purpose. At her company headquarters, she stood before her employees in the glass atrium. Hundreds of eyes watched her, programmers, engineers, marketers, cleaners. They had all read the headlines, "Billionaire husband arrested in murder plot." Melissa raised the microphone, her voice steady. "Family is supposed to protect us. But sometimes, family betrays us. I was nearly destroyed, not by competitors, not by market failure, but by the person I trusted most. Yet here I stand today. Stronger, wiser, free." Applause thundered. Melissa smiled and continued. "This company is not just about profit. It is about resilience. About survival. About building a future where truth protects wealth, and greed never wins. And let me say this clearly, without the courage of one humble girl, Judith, I would not be alive. From today, her story is our story." The applause grew louder. Some clapped with tears in their eyes. Melissa stepped back, her chest swelling with pride. Weeks later, Judith walked through the gates of her new university. A backpack hung on her shoulders, brand new notebooks inside. Her eyes shone as she looked around. Lecture halls, libraries, groups of students chatting about assignments and dreams. She had traded her maid uniform for jeans and a blouse. No longer Judith the maid. Now she was Judith the student, on her way to becoming Judith the leader. Melissa's driver dropped her at the dormitory. He carried her bag, but Judith shook her head. "I can carry it myself," she said with a shy smile. The driver nodded. "You're strong, Sister Judith." She walked into the dorm with confidence. Some students glanced at her simple clothes, not knowing she had once lived in the mansion of a billionaire. But Judith didn't care. She carried something greater than fashion: truth, courage, and opportunity. That night, she sat by the dorm window and opened her notebook. She wrote, "Education is wealth no thief can steal. Knowledge is the only inheritance I will pass on to my children." In prison, Bernard sat with his head bowed as other inmates mocked him. "Ah, big man," one jeered. "Where are your women now? Where is your champagne?" Another laughed. "You said you married money. Now you married prison." Bernard closed his eyes, his shame burning hotter than their laughter. He thought of the nights he spent flying across the world with strangers, lying to Melissa, wasting her hard-earned fortune on empty pleasure. He thought of the maid he ignored, the one who carried tea to his table with quiet respect. The same maid who had destroyed his empire of lies. For the first time in years, Bernard cried. But his tears could not open locked doors. One evening, Melissa sat in her penthouse balcony, looking out over the city lights. A glass of juice in her hand, her laptop open with new contracts flashing across the screen. Judith's name appeared in an email, scholarship disbursement confirmed. Melissa smiled. She whispered to herself, "The poor maid became my savior. Now she will become more than I ever imagined." Her heart still carried scars. The betrayal of Bernard cut deep. But she was learning that betrayal is not the end, it is a lesson. A lesson to love herself, to protect her empire, and to never hand power to anyone who doesn't deserve it. As the moon rose, two lives stretched in opposite directions. Bernard, locked behind bars, living with regret. Judith, walking freely into classrooms, carrying dreams. And Melissa, standing tall between them, whispering the truth of her survival. Self-love is the strongest armor. Greed may betray, lies may burn, but courage and truth always rebuild. The chapter closed on the echo of prison bars clanging shut, and the laughter of young students rising in the night air. The prison yard buzzed with noise, men playing drafts on a wooden board, others lifting buckets of water, and guards watching with lazy eyes. Bernard sat on a broken bench in the corner, his face dark with thought. His clothes were no longer fine linen but faded prison uniform, his once groomed hair now rough. But even behind bars, greed whispered in his ear. One afternoon, a man named Razor, a notorious fraudster, sat beside Bernard. His arms were tattooed with symbols, his eyes sharp like knives. "You're the billionaire's husband," Razor sneered. "The one who tried to end his wife." Bernard clenched his fists. "She ruined me. Took everything. Left me here to rot." Razor laughed, a low dangerous laugh. "No, you ruined yourself. But maybe I can help. I know people outside. If you still have connections, we can move money. Build influence. Even behind bars, big men don't end small." Bernard's eyes lit up. "What do you mean?" Razor leaned close. "Information is currency. Money is power. If you want revenge, start from here. Call who you trust outside. Begin again." Bernard nodded slowly. A seed of evil began to sprout again in his chest. He wasn't done, not yet. While Bernard dreamed of revenge, Judith's days bloomed with light. At the university, she quickly became one of the brightest students in her faculty. Her professors noticed how her questions carried weight, how her essays were sharp and full of life. During a seminar on entrepreneurship and financial management, she stood before the class and spoke with quiet confidence. True wealth is not built on greed. True wealth is built on value, on trust, and on discipline. Money can vanish, but character stays. That is why I want to build companies that invest in people, not just profits. The lecture hall fell silent, then erupted into applause. Some students whispered, "She talks like she's already a CEO." Judith smiled shyly, but deep in her heart she knew, she was no longer just a maid. She was becoming something greater. Melissa learns to love herself. Melissa, too, was transforming. One evening, she sat with her mentor, Mrs. Adesawa, the lawyer who had stood by her through the storm. "You've rebuilt the company, Melissa," Adesawa said gently. "Your employees respect you more than ever. But tell me, how is your heart?" Melissa looked down, twisting her bracelet. "It is hard to trust again. I gave Bernard 10 years. 10 years of loyalty, and he gave me betrayal." Adesawa touched her hand. "Then give yourself loyalty. Learn to love yourself fully before anyone else. Marriage is not the measure of a woman's worth. What you survived would have finished many. Yet here you are, still standing." Melissa breathed deeply, the truth sinking into her soul. She had built data centers, companies, wealth. But now, she was building something more important, self-love and healing. One morning, a thick envelope arrived at Melissa's office. Her assistant frowned. "Madam, this came from the prison." Melissa tore it open. Inside was a shaky letter written in Bernard's hand. "Melissa, I was wrong. Forgive me. I am a broken man. They laugh at me here, they mock me. I cannot live like this. Please, bring me back to you. Let me stand beside you again. I will never hurt you." Melissa read it slowly, then placed it on the table. She laughed, not with joy, but with a bitterness that cut deep. She whispered, "You wanted my life. Now you want my mercy. Bernard, I buried you the day you betrayed me." She tore the letter in half and dropped it in the trash. Later that week, Melissa was invited to give a keynote speech at an African Women in Tech conference. Thousands of young women gathered, eager to hear from her. Melissa stood on stage, the lights bright on her face. She spoke from her heart. "They told me I was weak because I had no child. They told me I was only strong because I had a husband. But when the storm came, it was not a husband who saved me. It was a poor maid who carried truth in her heart. That maid is now my sister, my future leader, and proof that greatness is not about where you start, but about the courage you carry. And let me say this, self-love is not selfish. It is survival. Protect your dream. Protect your life. Protect your truth." The crowd roared with applause, some women crying openly. Cameras flashed. Her words spread across the country, trending online. Self-love is survival. That same night, in his cell, Bernard heard the news on a smuggled radio. The announcer repeated Melissa's words, "Self-love is not selfish. It is survival." Bernard's chest burned. He smashed the radio against the wall, screaming, "She mocks me even from outside. She will pay for this." The other inmates watched him with mocking laughter. Razor whispered to another prisoner, "This one is drowning in his own pride. He'll destroy himself faster than the law will." Two worlds stretched apart. In one world, Melissa and Judith were building light, education, empowerment, growth. In another, Bernard was sinking deeper into the shadows of his own making, clutching at revenge like a drowning man grabs broken wood. And so, the story sharpened its blade. Greed is a prison you build for yourself. Truth is the key that sets you free. The prison air was thick with sweat and secrets. Chains clinked, voices murmured, and guards shuffled down the corridor with half-closed eyes. In one corner of the yard, Bernard sat with Razor, his new ally in shadows. Razor leaned in close, his voice low. "I told you, even in prison, money moves. You want revenge? Use your wife's name against her. You know her business secrets, her investors, her weaknesses. We can leak information. Break her trust with the public. Humiliate her." Bernard's eyes glowed with bitter light. "She stood on stage and mocked me. She called me nothing. I'll show her I'm still something." Razor smirked. "Good. I know a guard who likes money. For the right price, he can get a phone inside. With that phone, you can reach the world again." Bernard clenched his fist. "I'll do it. I'll make Melissa regret she ever crossed me." But even as he spoke, another prisoner, a quiet man named Musa, listened from the shadows. Musa wasn't a thief, nor a fraudster. He was in prison for protesting land rights in his village. His eyes burned with justice. He didn't like the sound of Bernard's plans. Far away from the prison stink, Judith was stepping into her first big university challenge, a tech innovation project. The assignment was to design a simple app that solved a real community problem. While other students pitched apps for fashion sales or event booking, Judith thought of her village. She remembered her mother counting coins by lantern light, struggling to track sales from Accra and palm oil. So Judith built an app called My Little Market. It allowed rural traders to record daily sales, track small profits, and see how much they saved each week. Simple English, big colored buttons, and offline features for areas with poor internet. When she presented, her voice trembled at first. "My mother taught me to record every coin. But many in the village forget, and their money vanishes like smoke. This app helps them see their business in numbers, even if they cannot write much. Because every trader deserves to know their true profit." The lecture hall burst into applause. Her professor smiled wide. "Brilliant. This is more than a school project. This is the beginning of financial freedom for rural traders." Melissa, who secretly attended the presentation after being invited by the dean, clapped harder than anyone. She whispered to herself, "The maid is becoming a maker of wealth." After the presentation, Melissa waited outside the hall. Judith came out, shocked to see her madam standing there. "Madam Melissa?" Judith gasped, dropping her books. Melissa hugged her. "No, Sister Judith. You did wonderfully. Do you know what you've built? This is the kind of innovation that changes economies. This is the kind of thinking I want in my company. Judith's eyes watered. I never thought I could do this. I only remembered Mama's words. Keep records, even of small things. Melissa smiled. That wisdom is gold. And you, Judith, are a diamond rising. Back in prison, Razor delivered a small phone to Bernard, hidden in a loaf of bread. Bernard took it eagerly, his fingers trembling. He dialed a number he remembered well, one of Melissa's old business rivals. This is Bernard, he whispered. I have documents. Copies of contracts, weaknesses in her data centers, even plans for her expansion. I'll sell them cheap. Destroy her, and I'll be satisfied. The rival chuckled coldly. Even in prison, you're still greedy. Send proof, and we'll talk. Bernard grinned. By the time I'm done, Melissa will watch her empire burn. But what Bernard didn't know was that Musa, the quiet prisoner, had already reported his suspicious behavior to a sympathetic guard. And the guard? He was connected to Inspector Toba. Two worlds once again collided. Judith was building tools of empowerment, turning her pain into innovation, creating apps that could lift thousands out of poverty. Bernard was building tools of destruction, turning his greed into poison, trying to tear down the woman he once vowed to love. But fate has its balance. For every whisper Bernard made in the dark, there was a witness waiting in silence. Because the truth never sleeps. The night was quiet in the prison block, but shadows were not sleeping. Musa, the quiet prisoner, sat on his bunk, watching Bernard whisper into the hidden phone. Every word dripped with venom, every promise carried betrayal. Musa knew he could not stay silent. He remembered why he was jailed, fighting for truth in his village, and he would not let another man's greed poison innocent lives again. By dawn, Bernard's plan was already in motion. He had sent files, copies of contracts and company drafts he had once stolen from Melissa's drawer, to her old rival. Leak them to the press, Bernard whispered over the line. Make her look like a fraud. Say she inflated revenue, say her data security is weak. When the world loses faith in her company, she loses everything. The rival laughed. Good. The public loves a scandal. Bernard grinned in the dark, his teeth flashing like knives. And I'll be the one laughing last. But what Bernard didn't know was that Musa had already spoken to the guard the night before. The guard, true to his duty, recorded the smuggled phone's IMEI and tipped Inspector Toba. The trap was set. Melissa faces the fire. By afternoon, news headlines screamed across the city. Tech billionaire under fire, leaked documents suggest financial misconduct. Melissa's company inflated profits. Data breach allegations surface. The stock market responded instantly. Investors panicked. Phones rang non-stop in Melissa's office. Her CFO burst into the room. Madam, we're down 12% in shares already. People are selling. Melissa stood calm, though her stomach churned. Call an emergency press conference. Today. We do not hide. We fight with truth. Judith steps forward. At the same time, Judith received the news in her dormitory. Students whispered, "Isn't that your sponsor? The billionaire? She's finished." Judith clenched her fists. No. She is not finished. She is stronger than lies. She packed her notebook and rushed to Melissa's headquarters. That evening, cameras flashed as Melissa walked onto the stage. She wore no diamonds, no heavy makeup, just a plain black suit and her natural confidence. Judith stood by her side, clutching a folder. Melissa faced the sea of microphones. They say I inflated numbers. They say my empire is built on lies. Tonight, I will show you the truth. She signaled Judith. Judith opened the folder and displayed years of records, audited reports, independent compliance checks, international certifications. Each stamped, each signed. Here, Melissa said firmly, are the documents. Verified by auditors. Our growth is real. Our contracts are legitimate. And this, she held up a USB drive, contains evidence of the real fraud, my husband Bernard, trying to sell stolen documents to my rivals. Gasps rippled through the hall. Cameras zoomed in. Melissa's voice cut like steel. The same man who tried to end me now tries to end my company. But just as I survived his betrayal, My company will survive this attack. Because truth never sleeps. Applause erupted. Reporters shouted questions, but Melissa raised her hand. We will answer with facts, not panic. Investors, partners, workers, stand with me. This empire is not one man's plaything. It is Africa's pride. The crowd roared, and for the first time in days, Melissa smiled. Meanwhile, in prison, Bernard waited for news of Melissa's downfall. Razor handed him the smuggled radio with a smirk. Listen. They're probably tearing her apart now. Bernard switched it on, only to hear Melissa's speech playing live, her voice strong, her evidence undeniable. The crowd was clapping, cheering. Reporters praised her courage. Bernard's face turned white. No, this isn't possible. Razor laughed coldly. You underestimated her. And you forgot. Truth always has longer legs than lies. At that moment, guards stormed into the cell. Bernard. Contraband phone found. Additional charges for fraud attempt. Bernard dropped the radio, his hands trembling. He screamed, "She'll pay. She'll still pay." But his voice cracked. The guards dragged him away, his curses echoing off the concrete. Judith's rising light. After the press conference, Melissa turned to Judith. Today, you didn't just help me. You stood before the world. You are no longer my maid, Judith. You are my partner in this fight. Judith's eyes filled with tears. Madam, I only carried the truth you taught me to protect. Melissa smiled warmly. And you carried it well. Someday, Judith, you will not just carry my truth, you will carry your own empire. Judith's heart soared. For the first time, she believed it could be true. As the city buzzed with the story, two images dominated the news. Bernard, dragged in chains, his mask shattered, his name forever tied to betrayal. Melissa and Judith, standing side by side at the press conference, the symbol of resilience and rising hope. And the lesson echoed across the nation. Lies are fast, but truth runs farther. Betrayal may break you, but self-love and courage rebuild stronger walls. The court was packed. Journalists filled the front rows, microphones buzzed, and cameras flashed. The story had captured the entire nation, the billionaire husband who plotted murder and fraud, and the poor maid who became the unexpected savior. Bernard was led into the courtroom in handcuffs, his once proud face pale and worn. Gone was the swagger, gone was the smile that once charmed people. All that remained was a hollow shell of a man consumed by greed. Melissa sat in the witness box, calm, regal, her head held high. Judith sat behind her with Mama Ebel, hands folded tightly in her lap. She wasn't just a maid anymore, she was a witness, a protector of truth, and now, a symbol of courage. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, this case is not only about attempted murder. It is about greed. It is about betrayal. It is about a man who tried to consume his wife's empire, not by building, but by destroying. We present voice recordings, fraudulent documents, and eyewitness testimony that show Bernard planned to end his wife and inherit her wealth. The evidence played aloud, Bernard's chilling words. I'm ready to end it. No child, everything will be mine. The courtroom gasped. Bernard shifted uncomfortably, avoiding Melissa's gaze. Judith was called next. She walked to the stand, her voice steady though her heart pounded. I served in that house. I saw his lies. I recorded his words, because I knew one day the truth would be needed. If not for those recordings, Madame Melissa would not be alive today. The judge nodded gravely. Courage from a humble maid. Your testimony has given justice its teeth. When Bernard was asked to defend himself, he stood shakily. His voice cracked. I was her husband. I gave her love. I deserved her wealth. She had no children. Who else should inherit it but me? Everything I did was for us. She betrayed me by choosing strangers over her own blood. Melissa finally spoke, her voice cutting sharp as glass. No, Bernard. I betrayed myself by trusting you for too long. Marriage is not a license to destroy. Love is not a weapon. You never built anything, you only fed on what others built. Today, your hunger ends here. The courtroom fell silent. The judge struck the gavel. Bernard is guilty of attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy. He is sentenced to life imprisonment. The sound of the gavel echoed like thunder. Bernard collapsed into his chair, his head in his hands. His empire of lies was finished. Months later, Judith stood on a university stage, wearing a graduation gown. The crowd erupted as her name was called, first-class honors in business and technology. Melissa was in the front row, clapping with pride. Mama Ebel wiped tears with the edge of her wrapper. Judith took the microphone for her speech. Her voice trembled at first, then grew strong. I was once a maid, invisible to the world. But when I chose truth, truth carried me here. Wealth is not in gold or houses. Wealth is in courage, in knowledge, and in the people who stand with you when the storm comes. If I learned anything from this journey, it is this: never sell your truth. It is the only inheritance no thief can take. The audience rose in thunderous applause. Later that evening, Melissa stood on the balcony of her new headquarters with Judith beside her. The city lights glowed like stars. You know, Judith, Melissa said softly, I thought betrayal would destroy me. But it birthed something stronger. It birthed us. Judith smiled, tears in her eyes. And I thought I would always be poor. But you showed me that poverty ends where courage begins. Melissa placed a hand on Judith's shoulder. From today, you are not just staff. You are my partner. Together, we will build an empire that greed cannot touch. Bernard lived the rest of his days behind iron bars, haunted by what he lost. Not wealth, but the respect and love that no money could ever buy. His name became a warning. Greed can strip you of everything, even your freedom. Melissa and Judith, bound by truth and courage, built a legacy that stretched across Africa, empowering young women, funding small traders, creating apps that gave the poor a chance to rise. And the story spread like fire, whispered in markets, classrooms, and boardrooms alike. Self-love is survival. Greed is a prison. Truth never sleeps.